Okay. Okay, 2011. So we'll pick up in 2011. You became involved with dramatic writing on Treme. Can you talk about how that came about and why that interested you?
Well, a few years ago, out of the blue, I get a call from David Simon. Now, I was already a huge David Simon geek and fanboy, so I've often compared it as like if you were a kid in the 60s and obsessed with the Yankees, and suddenly the phone rings and Mickey Mantle's on the phone saying, what do you come down to the stadium and throw the ball around? It was exactly like that. I mean, I immediately called my agent and said, look, David Simon's going to be calling, and whatever he wants, just say yes. It was, in a lot of ways, the most fun I've ever had at work. I'd never done anything like it. I was part of a team of writers, all of whom were far more experienced and awesome than me. I was well aware of the people who'd been on the wire, like George Pelecanos and was it Richard Price, and from Boston, Dennis Lehane. On the Treme group, it was Eric Overmyer and David Simon, of course, and Lolis Ellie and George Pelecanos. And I was given a character arc to write, and I mean, it was so much fun. I'd like to say it was hard, but it wasn't. It was really fun. And I'd never experienced this thing where you imagine a room. The characters more or less existed. I'd go to story meeting we'd go down, real punishment, routine. Fly down to New Orleans, hang out with George Pelecanos and David Simon, and talk about where the characters are going to go in general over the course of the season, and then go out to dinner in New Orleans. That didn't suck, but then they would send me story beats by email, and I would imagine a room, put these characters in, maybe make up another character, maybe not, like small minor characters, maybe not, put words in their mouths, and then a few weeks later, I turn on the TV, turn on the TV, and there's the room that I imagined. And these great actors who I admire, their mouths are moving and my words are coming out. And I could write in a very free way, because if it wasn't great, I always know that, I'm being rewritten by David Simon. It was so much fun. And I got to, I love collaborating, I love playing, and I like sort of the ability to sort of take care of unfinished business. Like I had unfinished business with Emerald. I wanted, one of my great ambitions, I made much of my career early on making fun of Emerald. He was a person who I didn't understand at all as a working line cook, this guy who liked people and who normal people liked and lived in a brightly lit studio. I had no understanding of that or any of those forces. I've come to understand. So it has long been my ambition, and I've come to know Emerald a little bit, and I wanted to get Emerald to say the word fuck on television. It was very important to me. I wanted to portray Emerald as the guy who I know him to be, which is a guy with a lot of responsibilities, responsible for a lot of people and a big empire, and the weight of that bearing down on him. So I wrote this scene for Emerald, and he killed it. I mean, very satisfying to me. And then, I suggested in a story meeting this, there was this notorious Alan Richman article about New Orleans. And I said, well, we should, have a critic like Alan Richman who publishes the Alan Richman-like article, and then our character can throw a drink in his face. And David Simon says, why don't we get Alan Richman? It was kind of extraordinary. And it says a lot about Alan that he was willing to do the scene, to have a drink thrown in his face, and to even show up for a scene which he knew I wrote. And,
And you've had your past with
he
him.
and my art, we actually sneak out for dinner now and again, Alan and I, but he, look, if you can't have an arch enemy you respect, it's not worth having. It was just a lot of fun. I mean, you really get to use your imagination. I mean, we have to adhere to some notion of reality. We do on parts of, and reservations, we have nightmare scenes, we have dream sequences, we have fantasy sequences, we have flights of fancy, we've had, drug and absinthe, stuff. But to complete fiction, to make stuff up and imagine it and then have it happen, it was really exciting. And then to work with people who I respect so much, who are so much better at it than I am, and who are doing something so foreign to me, it was just really exciting. It was like getting to drive a race car or something to do something I don't know how to do. I want to do it again.
I was going to ask if you want to do more of scripted television.
Look, David Simon calls me, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I'll deliver coffee. They want a latte, a soy latte, a whatever, frappuccino, I'll do anything. I really enjoyed that experience.
Okay, he'll be listening. In 2000...
He was pissed at me. I promised him a cronut a few years back, and he never got his cronut.
We can send him the simulacrum of one. In 2002, you did A Mind of a Chef. We talked about it briefly for PBS. What was different? Why did you want to do something like that, and how is it different from the other travel shows you had done?
Look, I think like a lot of people. A lot of projects that I admire made by other people, we're just trying to make the smartest television we know how. And we wanted to do a show about chefs that doesn't insult chefs. It shows chefs who are really smart and have something to say and care about things beyond, is it yummy? And so it's really, and it's not a cult of personality show. It is a show about the process, the creative process of why are we eating these things? Why are they cooking these things? Where does that come from? Does it reflect their background, the environment they grew up in, deeply felt personal experiences? I mean, the new season is with Gabrielle Hamilton, who's amazing and has this very personal menu. All of her dishes or reflections are autobiographical. I mean, they reveal often intimate or important moments in her personal history. It's very confessional. These are creative. I like and admire people who have something to say, but say it in a unique way, who have a voice. I find that really compelling. I don't really care about stories so much in anything that I do, whether I'm reading a book or watching a movie. I don't care about story. It's character, it's voice, it's atmospherics. These are huge. This is why I love Elmore Leonard. It's why Justified is such a great show, or was such a great show, for instance. A Leonard story, they never set the scene. It never was a bright side. It was a rainy, gray day in Kentucky. No, it starts right in the middle of the scene. Somebody's talking. You don't know who yet. They describe the contents of an ashtray and what's playing on the radio, and you pretty much know where you are and what's going on. It's amazing, and I love that. And I think that's what Mind of a Chef, why it appeals to me. It's about voice. It's about individual voices of people who are doing extraordinary things, and we don't care about anything else. There's no. It's not a dump and stir. It's about the creative process. That's a difficult thing, generally speaking, to portray on television or in film. Mm-hmm. So it's really largely a matter of finding really interesting people who say things in an interesting way.
Yeah, and like David Chang, it's just his passion comes through so well.
Yeah. We've been very fortunate to have some really great characters, mm-hmm. who are really, it helps that they're really great at what they do, but as importantly, and this is sort of strange. It's not a talent that or a characteristic that any chef was ever expected to have until fairly recently. A lot of people became chefs because they were dyslexic or they didn't read well, and so they were uncomfortable around words. They were shy or dysfunctional. They like hiding in the kitchen with others like them. They're very bad at communication. They sense that in themselves. That's why they became chefs in the first place. And yet now we live in a world where you have a lot of really articulate, people with the ability to talk about what they do in a compelling way. And, that's good TV. I think so anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you talked yourself about, it was the misfits that you found a home with, and now the term celebrity chef is thrown around so much. You mentioned Emerald before. You've said your piece about some of the others like Paula Dean and Rachel Ray. What do you think the image of the television chef, how has that evolved over the years from the days of Julia Child?
Right.
What does that become?
Well, I think someone like Julia would have a very difficult time now. You're too tall, you're not classically beautiful, you have a funny voice, you're not graceful, your food's not accessible. I think that's, she would have had a hard time these days. Doesn't speak well of us. Look, the very nature of Next Food Network Star, they're very upfront. It's a facet, I can't watch it. I just want to jab my eye sockets with the nearest sharp object. But if it's very instructional about the world we live in now, they're very upfront about, okay, your lasagna is okay, but are you entertaining? Are you making us want that lasagna? How's your hair? Do you have a good faux hawk? Do you have a signature look that distinguishes you from somebody else? And sadly, people are rolling out of culinary school with that kind of expectation, into an industry where, you're going to be making $11 an hour for the next 5 years. There's some dissonance there. But to be fair, the celebrity chef phenomena, the cult of personality, has been very good. It's been very good business for me, but it's been good for chefs in general because people care what the chef thinks now. Before Emerald, no one cared what the chef thought they should eat. It's the last thing they wanted to hear from the chef. I'll tell you what I want, my good man. I will have the steak. Now you go to, because you've heard about a chef, you heard they're good, and you want whatever it is they do. It's like you're buying an album.
Right,
I'd like to hear, let's listen to this person.
Also, I think it popularizes or makes people aware of certain food movements. So do you think, in a positive way, celebrity chef shows have impacted the culinary world in a good way? In terms of education?
It's people know more about food. They have higher expectations of food. You only need to go to a supermarket in England and see all the different types of breads and fresh herbs. There's life post Jamie Oliver and pre Jamie Oliver. There's life post Emerald and pre Emerald. A lot of food people would not be familiar with were it not for having seen it on Top Chef or elsewhere. There's no doubt about it. The dining public are more sophisticated about food. They have higher expectations. They're more knowledgeable. They care about what the chef thinks they should eat. They're more willing to try new things. Look, this is surely good. It's not bad. I mean, with all of the ludicrous hypocrisy and excess and affectation and silliness and pretense that comes with that, I think the pluses far outweigh the negatives.
What about for you personally, just dealing with fame, dealing with celebrity yourself?
Look, I worked in a kitchen for almost 30 years of my life. Cranking, not great kitchens for the most part. So I know what work is. Work is getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, making sure you're, firing up the steam table and making the home fries and, keeping up with doing 300 brunches is work. Being recognized in an airport, if you're running to the bathroom and getting you have to get your picture taken with a fan. You know what? I can live with that. And it's weird. It's not natural. It's something I think about for my daughter, like how much, I'm protective of, I don't pose with her in magazines or anything like that. Because it's weird and unnatural, and it distorts, you know, it would drive, I think had it happened to me earlier, it would have driven me mad, and I would have made all of the, fortunately, well, all the mistakes that I'd pretty much already made in my life. But at worst, it's weird. You know, it's not like I'm not walking around my apartment going, oh, everybody wants a piece of me, man. I can't take it anymore. You know, where's that latte? You know, no, I actually, look, like I've been saying, I like everybody I work with. I like everybody I've worked with for my entire writing and television career. I work with nothing but people who I like and respect. I never pick up the phone and have an asshole on the other end who I do business with. I pay my rent on time. I have health insurance. Life is good. So I can't complain. I have zero complaints.
And the flip side, of course, is now you're getting to meet some people who you looked up to. I'm thinking of Iggy.
Oh,
And we
super.
might talk about Iggy.
Super geeked out fanboy. Yes. And I'm unashamed about using my show to meet people who I am totally, super fan of. And so Iggy Pop was the, realization of, pretty much the bucket list is done now. There ain't nothing left.
How did that come about? You just
Well,
are able to call him up and say, do the show?
Well, years ago, I really wanted to use a song of his called Down on the Street from the Funhouse album.
Right.
And I reached out through intermediaries to his people, and their response, because we couldn't afford the song, basically. We were looking for it at a reasonable rate, and if possible. And the reaction was, Iggy is aware of Anthony and thinks he doesn't suck. So I figured there's hope. And we got the song for relatively cheap, which was very cool of him. So I knew he was a Miami resident, and I thought it would be and I knew that he was living a pretty clean life lately. And I thought it would be a great last scene, two old guys on a beach, but it's me and Iggy. I thought it would be a really great, I toyed with the metal detector, but I thought it was too much. But yeah, it was a dream. It was an absolute dream come true. I mean, his music was incredibly important to me from early on, responsible in many ways for a lot of the things that went wrong in my life. I mean, if you were a Stooges fan, it really did set you apart from, in not a good way in my high school. The meth freaks and gearheads listened to Iggy. Everybody else at that time, the cool kids were all listening to fucking Eagles.
We haven't talked
With
about
the Allman Brothers. I'm still bitter about that.
The Allman Brothers. We really talk about music, but music is a huge part of all of your shows.
Yeah.
Talk about the theme song and how Josh Homme came to write the theme song with Mark Lanigan.
Well, the relationship with Josh Homme and Queens of the Stone Age started in Berlin. I was shooting a Berlin episode years ago, and I forget, one of the producers got a phone call from somebody from Queens of the Stone Age organization, said, Queens of the Stone Age are in town, they're doing a show, and they reached out, they really liked the show, they'd love to have you drop by backstage. So I did, and I went down, I met all the guys, and I was like, wow, they did really great. And Josh and I hit it off right away. And years later, out of the blue, I just thought, I got a great, really stupid idea for a Christmas show. Maybe they'll do Christmas carols for us and dress up in stupid Christmas sweaters. Actually, the stupid Christmas sweaters were their idea. The whole band flew out with their instruments, I'm pretty sure for free, to a house in Connecticut in August, in the roaring heat, put on these cheesy, antler sweaters, and did Christmas carols and all this other nonsense, and it ended up being a lot of fun, and we made a couple of shows together since. And when I was looking for a song for Parts Unknown, I reached out to Josh right away. Josh had turned me on to Mark Lanigan way too late for me. I was way behind on Mark Lanigan, but I'm obsessed now. Yeah, he just sort of casually said, yeah, well, I got Mark involved for the song. Oh, so it's a Josh Homme, Mark Lanigan creation. I asked for a song that was sort of had the same kind of mix of optimism and but with the darkness, said it's a wonderful world. Was sort of a jumping off point. It's, I don't know. They played it to me I had a conversation over the phone. Song arrived the next week, and it's awesome. And we're hoping to do another show with Josh. He's
Out in Joshua Tree again, or?
I don't know.
Yeah. That was a great one.
I mean, look, I like music. My dad
Yeah.
worked at Columbia Records for a lot of the really great years of music. I was on sample service, meaning I got all the Columbia and Epic records every month, and would trade them for, I'd trade Jim Neighbor's records for, I'd go to Discount Records, which was owned by CBS, and trade all of my sample copies of the records that I didn't like for stuff on other labels. My dad was super supportive of any interest in music, as that had been his passion since he was 15 years old. And he was a very knowledgeable guy in music. And to his credit, both parents were, though they were classical and opera, they were very open to any passion for any kind of music. Any kind of music I was into was good music as far as they were concerned. And they did like Bob Dylan and Janis Joplin. My dad would do things like come home from work with Sgt. Pepper's. So it's like later when I got into drugs, I was like, dude, it's your fault. But music was always, I think, like any kid growing up during that time, it was who you were. I mean, if you showed up at school back then with a Cream or a Yardbirds album under your arm, it said something. That was your identity. There's that great scene in Almost Famous in the beginning when he's pulling out his sister's record collection from under the bed. I mean, that was my record collection. Yeah. And so yeah, we talk a lot about music even before we start shooting. If we're shooting in Indonesia, I'm thinking about Year of Living Dangerously already, and I'm thinking about the soundtrack. I think a lot about film scores and also musical styles, and we have a musical director for the show. Unlike most travel shows, we don't use much music library stuff. Early on the reservations, I'd get a rough cut of the show and say, wait a minute, I know that music, that's incidental music from some reality show I saw on MTV. No, we're gonna compose music for each show, it's a standalone score like a film, so that you live inside, it's such a manipulative thing. Image and music together, editing and music together, we can really make people feel a certain way just by playing sad music or happy music or dark music or scary ambient, whatever. So we just think a lot about these things, and it's fun. And if we can't afford the music rights to, a particular song, we'll make something that sounds kind of like it. And there's certain, we keep coming back. It's a cliche at this point, but I mean, we must have done musical cues from, incidental river music from Apocalypse Now. Like every time we do a river scene, going up river, it's like Carmen Coppola, certain music we keep coming back to because certain scores I really, really like, and we think of automatically. But again, that's those early beer-fueled conversations, like where are we going to go and what's the show going to look like, what's the music going to be, is part of that.
You've been called a punk rock chef. I mean, what's the correlation to you between music and cooking? And it seems like your whole attitude towards approaching these shows with each one is different and you're not looking back or trying to be formulaic.
I don't know. Cooking is about consistency,
Right,
Nobody
so
wants it.
opposite.
Nobody, if you enjoyed my chicken yesterday and you bring your friends in a week from now, you want the same, to taste the delicious chicken you had, you want it the same. And it better be the same at 6 o'clock as it is at 8, as it is 5 minutes to 11, or that's not a working business model. So, in a way, I think, making television is very much, maybe my attitude is a reaction to the imperatives of the restaurant business, which are all about repetition, and absolute consistency. Improvising is not something as a chef, that I want my cooks doing. You know, cooking is about control. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, there are a few artists in this world who can completely change their tasting menu every 8 minutes. I never worked in such a place. I was never at that level. For me, it was about control, control, control. And the chef nightmare is always, I am losing control, losing control. The food is inconsistent. That's the nightmare. Whereas the show, it's TV should be, you know, it's the opposite of that. You know, free to fail gloriously.
And talk about not stepping in the same river twice. You go back to cities with parts
Yeah.
unknown that you visited no reservations, like Beirut. Like, why is it important for you to go back, and what are you trying to find that's
Well,
different?
I think one of the fun things to do, there's two-part answer. I go back to places because I screwed them up the first time, or things went wrong. I mean, Beirut, things went wrong the first time we went. Okay, it's a show I'm really proud of, but it's not the show I intended to do. I loved Beirut, and I wanted to show people the things I love about it. So that's a place I'm probably going to keep going back to. There are places, you know, where we just did a bad job. You know, I haven't gotten Sicily right yet. You know, I've had 2 cracks at it, and I've screwed up both times. Just, you know, Sicily is a place filled with fantastic characters, amazing food, beautiful locations, and I have not been able to do the show that I wanted to do either time. So that's a place I'm probably going to go back again. Other places I'm just in love with, and I'm just going to find an excuse to go back. A lot of times, like Vietnam, I have to find a new angle, a new way to go back there because I love it. My camera guys love it, the producers love it, and it's a shot-rich environment, meaning we know there are many beautiful images to be had. How do we tell a different story there? And then there's the little genie in the head that says, look, Los Angeles, it's the most photographed place in the world, probably. I mean, more television has been made on location in Los Angeles than anywhere. It's been shot from every angle in every film and every TV show. Can we say something, can we tell a completely different, can we create a different Los Angeles that looks different than every other LA show? And so we've done a number of them ourselves. Let's go and make Los Angeles look as if no one lives there who isn't Korean. So that was it. We're just gonna go and shoot nothing but K-Town and live entirely inside that world for almost all of the show, as if the rest of it doesn't even exist. And I think we're gonna try it again, but do it like Central American. Like it would be great if like no English, but at all spoken, but it would be, can we shoot LA without ever leaving Mexican, Salvadoran neighborhoods? Can we create our own LA for purposes of the show? That would be really cool.
Call us up. We'll give you some tips. That's my wheelhouse.
What I love also is when people get pissed when reaction we often get when we do stuff like that is, that's not my Los Angeles, or that's not the Atlanta I know. Well, that's the point, you know. The Bronx, we heard this a lot. We had a lot of Italian Americans like, you didn't come to Arthur Avenue. Well, everyone goes to Arthur Avenue. Every Bronx show ever shot, the first thing they do, they go right to Arthur Avenue. We figured, you know, let somebody else do that.
Can you talk a bit about social media? You tweet for the show, and how's that changed the landscape of television for you? Like, and what do you enjoy about it, if you enjoy it?
Tweeting started as a defensive measure because somebody was going to do it, and I didn't want anyone like handling my Twitter account like, hey everybody, be sure to tune in. You know, like, you like cheeseburgers? So it started as a defensive measure, and then quickly, look, I like writing. I mean, I like telling stories. I like words, and it's like writing haiku. It's the very restrictive nature of 140 characters. That's fun. The challenge is try to be amusing at 140, communicative and amusing in 140 characters. That's I don't know. That's fun. So I use Twitter for fun, I guess, kind of. Instagram is more of a aggressive, passive aggressive. That's more like, look what I'm eating and you're not. I'm not sharing on Instagram. I'm trying to make you feel bad about what you're eating. Look at me, I'm eating, truffles. And then Facebook, it's all my product going up there, but I don't interact on Facebook. Our social media director here, Helen Cho, good friend, basically maintains it for me. But I don't communicate with Facebook friends or stuff like that. Twitter, Instagram, that's pretty much it.
Do fans inform the show at all? Do you take feedback?
We did a fan show, or we years ago, or I don't know. Do fans inform the show? There have been a couple of times.
You didn't show our city or our country the right way, which is that.
No, not real. Well, I'm generally, yes, I look. If when I did the Iran show, I was very, very acutely anxious about how Iranian Americans would react to it, and I followed that very closely. Filipinos as well. I know we screwed up the first time, or a lot of Filipino Americans were not happy. And yes, I'm going to be taking into consideration a consensus of what I heard. So it happens. More often than not, you get an overwhelming picture from a particular ethnic group or national group where you just didn't get it right. I'd like to see you really got it right. You nailed my community, or how did you find that bar? Man, people in my neighborhood don't even know about that bar. That makes me happy. Or you really got, Hawaii. It pleased me that we got a lot of good comments from actual Hawaiians. Mexico, that's a place. It's personal to me. I want Mexicans to like the show we did about their country. It would be upsetting if someone said, yeah, it's bogus. It's not, nice try, but. And I have sourced stuff on Twitter. Like I found a few authors through Twitter for my publishing and print.
Oh, okay. In terms of the shows that you're doing now for Parts Unknown, there's a lot of backstory, a lot of history of the country and the struggles. What is the research process, and how involved are you in that?
Sometimes Congo, that's a history that a historical obsession, done a lot of reading, and I had a very precise reference points and very precise idea of what material we wanted to be looking at, what periods of time, what historical events. Iran as well, I think was reasonably. If there's stuff I want to know more about, I will ask the producer during pre-production. The producers will be gathering that material and sending me briefing books or links to material. Sometimes I know a lot about a place. Vietnam, for instance, Cambodia, other places. Other times I don't know anything. I'm reading a briefing book on the way. Depends. Completely situational.
What's just blown?
Sometimes I don't like to know stuff.
Yeah, it seemed like Iran was like that. Like you were discovering the country with the camera.
I was discovering what it was going to be, what it was like there, what it felt like there. But I was very aware of the history pre-revolution. One of the trickier writing tasks was to talk about all of everything from Mossadegh through the fall of the Shah and the Ayatollahs in 60 seconds. So I had my daughter do it as a fairy tale. I wrote a little.
Was that her voice?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. That's great. What are your favorite episodes to date of Parts Unknown? What are you proudest of?
Wow. Congo is one because it was really hard. That was a very dodgy shoot filled with physical difficulty.
Was that the plane? Was that the one where you went up in the little plane?
We went up in a little plane, but and in a boat, and then we spent a lot of time, without anything resembling plumbing, in a situation where we were robbed or extorted or threatened with imprisonment by whatever local security chief or secret policeman. There's no law and order there. There's nothing like resembling law and order. It was a very, very, very challenging, very physically punishing show in a country that has had and continues to have extraordinary difficulty. It's a very complex situation, and I think I'm proud of that because nobody talks about the Congo, and it's a huge and important story. Iran, I'm proud of because it was a real tightrope act. Things could have gone. It was difficult to get in. It was the end result of 5 years, and generally speaking, the people who matter to me liked it, meaning Iranians within Iran and Iranians who left Iran because of the situation there seemed to like it. Gaza, West Bank, Palestine, Israel, I'm proud of. I love the look of the Shanghai episode. I'm proud of CNN for airing the Japan show. It was some really tricky material.
And the music. The music was great too.
I'm proud of the shows that were hard. And
you've received many accolades for the shows, Emmy Awards, Emmy nominations. What do those accolades mean to you?
I like when your peers, when people who do what you do, especially when it's people who've been doing what you do a long time longer and a long time, and better than you for a long time, choose to acknowledge you, that feels really great. I mean, I am susceptible to pride. It felt really good winning an Emmy, a lot of my life, I'd wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and see somebody I was not proud of with much to celebrate. It makes me, I'm very aware that I'm part of a thing, it's an enterprise with a lot of people, and we all work really, really hard, and we really push each other. So when me or anybody in the crew gets a gong, it feels good. It feels really good. It's, I'd like to, I'd like to say, well, it's not that over. No, it means something. It does mean something.
You've worn so many hats, from chef, writer, producer, host, voiceover artist. How do you define what you do now? What role do you think fits you best?
Look, I'm a storyteller. And I'm a collaborator, I'm lucky because of storytelling. Through storytelling, I meet a lot of interesting people, some of whom I get to collaborate with and play. I get to play. I mean, I like making things, whether it's I'm not a carpenter. I can't make a birdhouse, or a chest of drawers. If I could, I would be I would find that very satisfying to be able to make something and with my hands and then put it right there and look at it. You get that for only a second at a time when you're cooking, All the fruits of your labors, you put it up there, and, you're looking at it, and then it goes out to the customers and they ruin it, So to make an hour of television, or to collaborate on an hour of television, to write a book, or to help somebody else be published, that feels good. I made something. All right, I was part of, we made something together. Look, there it is.
Forever.
Oh, I don't care about the forever. I don't care about the forever so much. Because I guess maybe that comes from the rest of the food thing. I'm used to the plate only being there in the slide for a second, a few seconds. So if it hangs around, if it's in repeats for a year, wow, that's a long time.
What do you love most about what you do now?
The freedom to move. The technical details, the little putting the little pieces together. You know, it seemed like a good idea in a hotel lobby in Saigon, and we were all talking about it, and maybe we had too many beers, but, you know, after somewhere between the rough cut and the fine cut, and a whole bunch of back and forth, when it works, and you're looking at it, when the little pieces come together and the music's laid on top, you say, oh yeah, that works. That looks, it not only, that's a really cool shot you got, but the music really works with it, and when we cut right there, it's much more powerful than it was in the last version, and yeah, that feels good.
It sounds like from the first, beer talking about the style of the show and the music of the show down to the edit room, it sounds like you are really there the whole time. So is there any piece that you don't touch?
I'm on it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know how to operate a camera. I know that I might want really like artificial candy colors in a particular episode, reminiscent of something, but I don't really know how color correction works. I presume they do it on the computer. I don't know how, but I mean, I think about this stuff a lot. I think about, I don't know how to light a room at all, but I know what films, I recognize, I think I'm pretty good at recognizing good light when I see it, or at least I know when I don't know enough to ask, and I'll ask Zach or somebody who has experience in lighting, how do we get that? How did they do that? That looked really great. Why does everyone look so beautiful? Why is it all sepia color? Why is it fuzzy? Why is it so crisp in the foreground and fuzzy in the background? I like that. Let's do that. Can we do shaky cam? Can we do a whole show on cell phones? Yeah, the film that maybe, one film that got us running to figure out where we can do it was La Grande Bellezza, The Great Beauty. That opening shot was like, immediately where we have to do that. And then I saw Birdman, and now we're stumped. We're like, what do we do? I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can fake it. I really think we're screwed. We can't rip that off.
I think CNN would go for you running naked through Times Square, though. Maybe GoPros. How has fatherhood changed you? You appeared in Yo Gabba Gabba recently. I mean, that wouldn't have happened before. But
yeah.
How else has fatherhood changed you?
Well, you're not, the minute you see your child born, you understand right away that any notion of cool has instantly evaporated. You can't be cool and a dad, It's the last thing a kid wants is a dad with a Ramones t-shirt and a thumb ring. That's an embarrassment. And the whole notion of cool is not caring about stuff. Right away with a child, you care. But I think most importantly, and it's a fantastic liberating relief, is you're no longer the star of your movie. It's not about me anymore. I mean, it is, but compared to, it's all about her. Anytime she wants it, demands it, or needs it, it's her movie now. That's a wonderful thing to instinctively and without, to care about another person you give your life for them in a split second, instinctively, without thinking about it. To love that way. Well, it's a perspective, it's a feeling, it's a responsibility that I enjoy, but it's a perspective on the world that's a relief. I'm a pretty self-absorbed guy. I mean, anyone who writes or is on television is generally a monster of self-regard. So to be a dad is the antidote to that, or at least a mitigating factor, I think. You really, you know what's important when you have a child.
Thinking in terms of looking back at your career now and things you maybe either wish you'd known when you started or glad you didn't know, what advice, I'm going to go through each of your roles now, what advice would you give to someone who was looking to be a writer?
Don't think about what people expect. Well, just same as in cooking in a lot of ways. Show up every day and just do it. Don't read your own stuff until you have a pile of it. You know, I think if you edit yourself every day, if you're constantly rewriting, reading and revising, don't do that. You know, wait till you have 100 pages. Then if you lose 75 of them, you know, you still got 25. You still feel like a writer instead of, you know, you're not hating yourself and thinking it's all futile. But I don't know. You know, it's all I still don't really understand how I, you know, do it. It's nice to have a voice. You know, I don't know. I did it all wrong, and it worked out. I'd love to say keep at it, but if you suck, don't keep at it. You know, never complain, never explain in prose. Don't write poor me novels or poor me books. The bad guy, you should always have sympathy for the bad guy. Find something to love about the good guy, or always find something to love about the bad guy. If you can't do that, it's hopeless. If your bad guy's not interesting and have something compelling about him, then that's tough. And the good guy, the most interesting good guys to me, particularly in novels, are the suspense is, am I still going to like this person at the end of the chapter? It's not like, do they get killed? Or are they going to do just something so unforgivable that I can't like them anymore? That's much more interesting to me.
What about someone who is looking to be a producer of television? Different advice?
Yeah, again, I work with friends. You know, I produce stuff as part of a team. I bring in things that people and subjects that I'm passionate about. You know, content. It's all about content. You know, it's the ability to. You know, I don't even. I'm not out there looking for stuff. But I travel a lot. I know a lot of people, or I hear a lot. I don't know. You hear a voice that you believe in, and if you're in a position to do something, it seems natural to do that. I'm the sort of person, like, if I see a movie that I really, really like, or I read a book that I really like, I'm the sort of annoying, I would hunt you down and every one of my friends and knock on your door and shove the book in your face and then sit next to you on the couch until you read all of it, making sure that you read it. I'm evangelical about stories that I'm passionate about. I guess that helps. If it's not fun, there's no point. And if you're gonna feel ashamed, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't really understand anyone who could produce something that they don't actually like. I think it's more frightening is that people produce stuff and then find a way to like it, you know, and convince themselves that it's really good when, you know, all evidence to the contrary. I don't know. Look, I'm really lucky. I mean, producer, yeah, I don't know. You know, I started producing my own show, you know, so that's, I'm spoiled, you know, I've only really had to do passion projects. It's not a business to me. Mm-hmm. It's, who wouldn't if they couldn't?
Right. But it seems the good team is key. And do you
yeah.
want to talk about 0.0?
Look, if this is a group of people who I've been working with since the very, very beginning. I mean, a great story is a wonderful thing, but it's not everything, you know. I have amazing, amazing cinematographers, you know, great producers. We're really familiar with each other. You know, in the best case, I'm looking at something and, you know, one of my producers, they kind of know where I'm going. We know where to look. You know, I compare it to, you know, a band a lot. There's that sense of familiarity. We know each other's likes and dislikes, what we think is funny, or with, you know, and that's a really comfortable thing. And I guess the most important part of that is when you're working with people who are really, really good at what they do, well, let them do that. You know, why do I want to work with a camera person, a cinematographer, and say, don't be as awesome as you can possibly be. No, I would really like you to be as awesome as you could possibly be. I would like the most, editors, I'm huge on this. It's like, I would like you to send me the most creative edit you ever dreamed of doing. I don't care whether it's backwards, forwards, the hell with, chronology. We can always dial back if need be, but you can't make something in post or after a rough cut, you can't make it more creative. The first thing should be, we should all sit there slack-jawed staring at it saying, oh, wow, I don't know what I just looked at, but it's really amazing, and it's completely different than what anybody else is doing. People, if you have the ability to let creative, skilled, technically proficient people do their very best work, as creative as they ever dreamed of being, give them the freedom and the room to do that. You could dial it back later if it's like insane. But encourage people, at least in the beginning, to go out there and do their absolute best. Let them do their dream project. You can negotiate later, but they should know that you're behind them, that you want something that's really right on the edge of terrifying.
What's your dream project? Where do you see yourself, say, 10 years? What would you like to have done?
I'd like to make shepherd's pie with Keith Richards.
That kind of seems like low-hanging fruit for you, I have to say.
I'm working on it.
Okay. Okay, well, we're wrapping right up. Thank you. How would you rate, in order of preference, cooking, traveling, or writing?
It's almost inverse importance to reality. I mean, if we're on a lifeboat together, my cooking skills would be far more important than my traveling or writing skills. In fact, you'd kick me off the boat pretty quick because the food ran out if I wasn't anything but a cook. Look, traveling is the ability to travel. I quote Muhammad a lot. He said, I think, don't tell me what a man says. No, I think it's either, don't tell me what a man says, tell me where he has traveled. There's something wonderful about travel. If you could just travel and look at the world and walk in other people's shoes and see things and feel things, that's a pretty great thing. I mean, all of this, in a lot of ways, the writing, the TV, I don't know, is it a means to an end? It certainly has allowed me to see the world, to look out at a lot of really amazing things, have a lot of amazing relationships, meet a lot of really extraordinary people, see, this is a big world, and there's a lot of scary and ugly stuff, but there's also a lot of really amazing and kind and magnificent stuff. So traveling first. I don't know whether writing or storytelling. Look, I was a storyteller when I was a little kid. Always, I always used language, as I said before, to get things, to change the reality on the ground to more favorable terms. Cooking, look, it started everything for me. Dishwashing was even more important in my case. I mean, it's where it all began. It's where I learned how to work, how to be a citizen, how to work with others, how to respect myself, how to show up on time, how to be the sort of person who, if I said I was going to do a thing, actually did it. But cooking, as a human being, when you're talking about to be a member of a family or any kind of a society, cooking over anything. I can cook, I can nurture, I can make you feel better on a rainy day when things have gone badly. I can take something that's pretty nasty and tough and unpleasant and probably turn it into something, reasonably edible. So cooking may not be the most fun, but it's probably the most important.
Mm. So, last question, with all of your varied experiences and accomplishments, what is your proudest career achievement? It could be anything.
My proudest career achievement. I don't know. I was pretty happy to be on Archer.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. Yeah, we didn't talk about the
I don't
voiceover
know.
stuff.
I don't know.
Oh, The Simpsons.
The Simpsons.
Come on.
I don't know. I loved writing for Treme. That was very exciting. Some of the shows that I like, the Rome show that started as an idea and then actually ended up looking like I'd imagined it. That's a really satisfying thing. I don't. And you can't put it on a pedestal. You can't, see. You can't point at it for the rest of your life. It just, I came out of that experience feeling pretty good about whatever it is I do for a living.
If you could replace the epithet of "Don't eat fish on Monday" with something, what would it be?
Look, I like the Warren Zevon quote. I think it's the smartest thing ever said. I think as he was dying of cancer, he said, somebody asked him for advice, what he'd learned in his life, as I understand it anyway. And so Zevon said, enjoy every sandwich.
Okay, that's what we have to end on. Thank you so much, Tony. It was
My
such
pleasure.
a pleasure to meet you and to talk with
Thank
you.
you.
And I'm sorry we kept you so long.
No, not at all. The